change control of the Senate because hypothetically, under the Democrats' preferred scenario, obviously Trump is if the Democrats have a new Senate and they're successful in taking the Senate, Trump will be out of office when that happens. But how do the Democrats stand in the chances of taking the Senate? So even if there is Trump 2020 through 2024, it won't be much of a big deal because the Senate will be gridlocked. How do you think that's going to play out? Like, what are the Democrats' chances in the Senate at the moment?
I give them 40% right now. It's just because of the fact that a lot of these candidates who are running aren't really the best possible candidates we can have in some states. I mean, there's only a couple states that I can say we got the best shot right now. We got Colorado with Hockenlooper, and we also got Arizona with Mark Kelly. We got to get someone good in Texas. We got to get someone good in Maine. We got to get someone good in in North Carolina. And we really have to also look and see how we're going to really get a good candidate. Because, I mean, look, I don't particularly like Beto, but I will say that he definitely would have the best shot
in Texas. You mean
that? Yeah, that's Senate race in Texas instead of the presidential race. I mean, he's not doing any good in the presidential race that he's in right now, and I think that he would definitely be a good candidate there. I give it 40% right now, just because I think that they got to get better candidates in those states. They also really got to look at Iowa. You know, Iowa is also another state that they got to look at because that's a really interesting toss-up state in the presidential race. So they can put a good person there. In all the states that I said, even in West Virginia possibly, which is also a really long shot state. But if they get someone good in there, like Earl Ray Tomblin, who is the former governor of West Virginia, that's the guy who I would support if he actually decides to jump in that race in West Virginia. Those are the states I think we need to be really focusing on, because right now I give it a 40% chance of it, and that's the reason. The only state I could see us gaining is Arizona and Colorado at this moment right now, because Kelly in Arizona is very popular. He has a very good moderate message right there against Martha McSally. He's actually beating her by 5 points in that state, you know. And then we have Colorado. I think
I think it's also very good because there's a lot of different name recognition and brand that's kind of like separate from the Democratic political brand, which I don't think is very popular with a lot of people, like voters generally in the country.
Yeah, he definitely does bring that up, and he brings it up. I think he also brings science to the table. I think that's also what we need to be really talking about. And I think that's what a lot of voters are interested in with climate change, within our protecting our environment. And this guy was an astronaut. You know, he's an engineer. He knows a lot about what we're going to be doing. Also, the city we should also look at, I mean, this is also a little bit of a long shot, but I understand if we don't get it, is Georgia. I mean, Stacey Abrams, if she could run, I don't support any of her ideas. But look, I mean, I think that if she were to run, she could definitely win in that state. Or even that guy who ran for that special election in the House against, I think it was in Georgia 6, where Laura McBath had actually won in 2018. Joel Ossoff, I think was his name.
Oh, yeah. I don't think he'd be very good. I don't think he'd be very good because he lost in what was a district that he probably shouldn't run. I don't think he's very inspiring or very interesting at all. He's not a very good. Seems to be just a little bit too moderate and not very inspiring to me. But anyway, I do want to turn tides to the climate, because if I know you, James, I know that you are very, very passionate and interested about the climate and are worried about like what's going to happen. And there's an interesting article that is in Splinter News, a site that we often use here on the podcast, with the entitled "From Hamilton Nolan: Sell Your Beach House." So, what do you think it's time to sell your beach house? Like, are things that dire that you can't have a nice house by the beach and enjoy some nice waves because of the risk of some crazy storm or rising sea levels over the next few years? Like, do you think that is a reality that some beach house owning or people who live on the beach, like, or near the beach even, and maybe don't have like you live in Florida, you live in like Fort Lauderdale, you live a few blocks away from the beach, is that going to be a problem coming down the road, do you think?
In quite a while, I would say definitely would be a problem. I mean, you look at the majority of the U.S. along our coastline, the majority it's going to be underwater. I mean, New York, for example, New York State's going to be underwater. You look at, states like North Carolina, the Outer Banks, they're going to be gone. You also see a lot of parts of Georgia, the they're going to be gone. In the low country of South Carolina, a lot of parts they're going to be gone. Should you be selling your beach house? No, I mean, look, enjoy life right now. You only have one shot in life to enjoy and take the most out of it. And I would definitely say to take the most out of it at the time where you can. And if you could definitely afford a beach house, fine, have one. I'm not against people having more than one house. I mean, for me, I think it's a little bit ridiculous, but having a beach house, yeah, fine. If you want to have one, definitely don't think it's bad, especially if you enjoy going there. I mean, if you go there and you're not relaxing, then I think that maybe then you should consider selling, because then why are you having a beach house? You're not relaxing there, or it's not relaxing to be there. But I definitely do think that in the future we're going to have to see what's going on with our coastal communities and see what needs to be done, because Miami Beach is a perfect example. They have an amazing draining system, but it won't be able to take the capacity once sea levels begin to rise at a much faster rate if we continue on our path of a temperature increase on the same scale that we've had for the last couple of years.
What is the time frame when do things under climate change in the world that we see that, when do things really start to get incredibly serious?
If we stay on the same track, it's going to be anywhere between 2045 and 2055, 2060. That's when we'll start to see a lot of the major sea level rise damage, because right now we're seeing the first stage of it, which isn't going to be very major. But we are getting more storm surges on land whenever we have a hurricane. Perfect example of what we're seeing now. And then also during high tide, when you get the king tide, as they call it down in Florida as well, parts of Miami are completely underwater, maybe up to a little bit halfway up your ankles, maybe 6-7 inches high.
That just was not happening before.
Oh yeah, no, it was not happening before. That problem started, I think, around 2016, 2017, when the king tide started to get a little bit worse. I mean, it's not disastrous. They have a better draining system now for it. It only happens, I think, 3 or 4 times a year. Nowadays, it used to only happen, I believe, once every 3 or 4 years. So it definitely is a more reoccurring instance that they have to definitely be alert of.
Yeah, I definitely think that's going to be something that we need to watch. And I think it's now important to really kind of look at who is going to be the best person to solve this with the most clear mind on climate change, and someone who actually is funded ethically when it comes to that, because I'm sure, James, this is probably an issue that you care most about. I know something that I do too. I care a lot about the issue of the climate and what's going to happen in the future that I will be living in. And that's why I myself was very disturbed. I think a lot of people around the country were, after a report from The Intercept about Joe Biden. I don't know if you're aware, this is at CNN Climate Crisis Town Hall on Wednesday night that he attended. He claimed to be unaware of a report from The Intercept, a great news site that we often cite here on the show, that a fossil fuel executive would be co-hosting a fundraiser for his campaign on Thursday, whose name is Andrew Goldman. He's a co-founder of Western LNG, is a natural gas production and transportation company based in Houston, Texas. And it literally stands for LNG, liquefied natural gas. Goldman also worked as an advisor to Biden during his time as U.S. Senator, and they have definitely deep ties to each other. I do want to quickly here play a clip that unfortunately James will not be able to hear about him being asked about it by a Northwest University doctoral candidate, Isaac Larkin. Here is kind of what he had to say on the matter that we're going to have for you in just a few seconds. And again, it's definitely a very, very awkward situation. And yeah, this is the moment at the town hall where this kind of awkwardness went down.
No, that you signed a no fossil fuel money pledge. But I have to ask, how can we trust you to hold these corporations and executives accountable for their crimes against humanity when we know that tomorrow you are holding a high-dollar fundraiser hosted by Andrew Goldman, a fossil fuel executive?
He's not a fossil fuel executive, I'm told. He is not a fossil fuel executive.
You see, the question got some applause, and that was definitely a very awkward
There is a fundraiser tomorrow
situation.
night. It's given by a guy named Andrew Goldman. He does hedge funds and stuff, but he also has a company called Western LNG. And their biggest project, which I think was announced in like 2018, is a floating liquefied facility for natural gas. It's off the coast of British Columbia, and it's going to provide Canadian gas to parts of northern Asia.
Yeah, so that was Anderson Cooper hearing about that. So yeah, and it really, really is kind of insane that Joe Biden, who is trying to get the Democratic nomination for president, like not the Republican nomination for president, but the Democratic nomination for president, trying to convince people who care a lot about the climate, like you and I do, that there is that he is serious, he's going to be the one to take on climate change. How can we trust him when he is taking this money and he's not serious about doing any kind of climate change, major climate change action? He signed that pledge, but he's still so tied to big money, so tied to these people. I find it super, super, super hard to trust him, and it seems like he just doesn't care, not really serious about this entire situation, which is quite crazy. He didn't realize, quote unquote, that he is holding fund. It's just really kind of unacceptable. Yeah, he's deep ties to fossil fuel, and that kind of links it's just unacceptable, in my opinion, to have in a candidate. What's your take on that?
I mean, I definitely do see the point where people are a little bit upset by Biden's role in that. But I think what we need to look at is to see if he actually got money from the guy. I mean, yeah, he's having a fundraiser. The guy's going to be there. But we got to see if he actually got the money from there. And also, I do think that right now, Biden definitely doesn't have that bad of a policy plan for the climate. He has a more realistic policy, in my opinion, to be honest, because I think this sky-high thing of 2030 to get zero emissions, first of all, it's not going to happen. I'm just going to tell you right now, 2030 is too fast. I mean, I would love it by 2030. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but we can't make it seem like, because then what's going to happen? Then people are going to be like, oh, I can't make it. It's not going to work, because then that's going to be a problem. I mean, you can't get people to get rid of their cars by 2030, and then also by having a policy plan that by 2030 as well is going to somehow get our economy zero emission. I mean, our economy is pretty dirty right now, I'm going to say. I think 2040 is definitely the best shot. 2050 is a little bit too late, but 2040 probably is our best shot at actually getting something like a zero emission economy going. But I think for Biden, I think that he definitely has a different approach to the climate. Going back to this rally that he had, well, I do think that's a little bit disturbing, but we also have to see if he's getting money, because, yeah, he did sign the pledge, but we also got to see.
I definitely think, obviously he's getting money from them. It's a fundraiser that was hosted by him, so presumably he'll chip in some other stuff. But again, if Andrew Goldman or any of his friends, I think, call his office, and he has said this before. He said, "I will take your call if you have donated money to me. If I recognize your name from one of those checks I've been cashing for my campaign," he did say this, that I will be more likely to take your call. So who's to say when Andrew Goldman wants to drop him a line and say, this will hurt the company that I'm on the board of, this bill that you're considering, please don't sign it or come out against it. Who's to stop him from doing that as president? He's just corrupted, I think, really beyond belief at this point.
I mean, I see your point again there. But I think, I think that what we're going to have to see here, I mean, Goldman definitely is a guy who I would say we have to keep our eye on, especially with this campaign now with Biden, because his name is going to pop again. This is not going to be the last time we're going to see his name popping up with this campaign. But I think that when we look and see how exactly his campaign is going about with his climate policy, I mean, look, yeah, it may contradict it a bit. I do see that point coming up, but we also got to have it in a way that's not going to be destroying, the grid that we have. Our grid's very, very fragile. I mean, it's ridiculous how fragile our grid is. Honestly, the first thing we should be focusing on is fixing our grid before changing everything to renewable, to be honest.
And that's part of the point. I think that's part of the point of the Green New Deal, and what makes the Green New Deal so innovative and outside the box and very, very important, because it takes into account the fact that jobs can be created for people of all economic backgrounds and ethnic backgrounds as well, so that no one gets left behind, to really bring our economy green and also into the 21st century. So I think that part of it is addressed in the Green New Deal, which I think makes it so much more important.
Yeah, which funny enough, actually, Biden does support that portion of the Green New Deal with the idea of getting more jobs into the clean energy sector and the economy to help reach our net zero emissions. And so, I definitely do think that some parts of the Green New Deal, I will have to say I do support, but some parts a little bit sky high. I don't really agree with the the fact of giving jobs to people who are, quote unquote, unwilling to work, because I think that's a little bit ridiculous.